Genesis chapter 12, the Lord appeared to Abraham and He made a number of promises to Abraham. Those promises included that God would bless Abraham, that God would make a great nation out of Abraham, but also that God, through Abraham, would bring blessing to all the nations of the earth. So as we read from Genesis 12 onward, we begin to see that God starts to fulfill those covenant promises. So at the beginning, the blessings and the promises are centered around Abraham personally. So him and his wife Sarah were barren, and God miraculously brings about the conception of Isaac. Sarah's past the normal age of giving birth to children, but God provides a miracle and Isaac is born. God's blessing is evidenced in Abraham's life personally as He gets Abraham out of several predicaments that Abraham got himself into in dealing with Pharaoh and dealing with Abimelech. Now, as Abraham's descendants begin to multiply, we see this in Exodus, for example. God's hand is upon the descendants. They're greatly increasing in Egypt. They're made slaves. And God comes in, He delivers the Israelites from Egypt, and He brings them into the land of Canaan. He establishes the descendants of Israel into a kingdom. He establishes them into a nation. Now, in these days, we begin to see the blessing going forth beyond the borders of Israel. So in one sense, through the judgments, Egypt begins to know and have a knowledge of the Lord. As they're moving into the land of Canaan and beginning the conquest of the land, for example, we have a woman named Rahab who comes into the knowledge of God and is blessed because she changes her allegiance from her old God to the God of Israel. As the nation of Israel is established, we see an example of someone like Ruth who comes along and she changes her allegiance from her gods to the God of Israel. Now, the fullness and how the blessing of how all the earth is going to be blessed through Abraham doesn't come about in large measure until Jesus Christ is born. So Matthew identifies Jesus as a descendant of Abraham, and Jesus Christ is identified as the Bible as God's unique Son. He is Savior and Lord of the entire earth. And so Jesus commissions His apostles and disciples to go forth and to make disciples of all the nations, to take that saving message about Himself to the uttermost parts of the earth. And we begin to see that story displayed in the book of Acts as the gospel makes its way through Israel, the gospel makes its way to the Samaritans, and the gospel begins to make its way outside the borders of Israel. And once again we see in the picture of Revelation 5 and Revelation 7 that the gospel of Jesus Christ will be successful. It will penetrate all nations. It will penetrate all language groups. It will penetrate all tribes, and a number of men, women, and children will be saved by the gospel of Jesus Christ.